Hi and welcome to this week's lesson walkthrough. This week we are staying in the book of Judges. We're moving on from Deborah and we're looking at Gideon. So if you haven't downloaded this week's lesson already, can I encourage you to head over to the website at truewaykids.com. There you can find this week's lesson, download it or look online and follow along. And hopefully this will help you to deliver this lesson to your under fives. So front cover this week, I made this picture there of Gideon. There he is with the wheat down inside the wine press or in a hole in the ground, hiding from the Midianites, trying to save his food. So what we're going to do, the story of Gideon, we're going to split into two parts. So this week we're going to look at Gideon's calling. Then next week we're going to look at the battle, when he goes to battle with the 300. But I will be safe for next week. So this week is concentrating on Gideon's calling. The first page of a lesson you will see the introduction. I've included as usual, and there will outline some of the main points which I think is good for us to deliver in this lesson. There's a link to a QR code again to link some YouTube videos which should be helpful and tells this story, as well as some points of how you can deliver it and some activities you can do with your child. Some of the main points we want to focus on this week is that God sees us differently to how we see ourselves. You know, sometimes as grown-ups as well as children, we feel unable, we feel that we are too weak, we feel that we are not skilled enough. And so this was a case with Gideon. But God spoke to Gideon and said, mighty warrior. Gideon definitely didn't feel like a mighty warrior, but God seen him differently. And we can remind our kids that God sees them differently than how they see themselves. And he sees their potential, who they could be in him. Another point we want to reinforce again, and as we carry on through Judges, we'll see this point over and over again, that God never forsakes his people, he forgives them. We see again at the start of this lesson that the children of Israel had again forgot about God, started to disobey him. But yet when they call out to him, he forgives them and sends another judge, Gideon, to save them. We see that God also enables us to accomplish the tasks that he calls us to. And we'll see that more in detail next week. But Gideon didn't feel, he said, I am the weakest in my family and my family is the least of everyone. He didn't think he could do it. And sometimes, often, we don't feel that we can do the things that God calls us to do. Maybe as a adult or grandparent or Sunday school teacher, as you listen to this, you feel unable to teach the kids who God has given you with. But God empowers us to do so, and God will empower your kids also. And finally, with God on our side, we don't need to be afraid. Now, Gideon had the confidence to go forward and obey God because God promised to go with him. Well, here you see a few other activities to reinforce these points I've mentioned. And yeah, I really just pray that you have a special time as you studying God's word with your child. So to help you again reinforce the lesson, I've done a 2-page printout. So it's 4 bits altogether. And this just tells the story of Gideon. So you see here, the Midianites coming in every year taking the food. He was hiding there with his wheat so that they wouldn't steal it. God spoke to him, said, you're a mighty man of warrior, and he didn't feel like it. So he did a test with the fleece, and there's the fleece, the ground's all dry, but the fleece is soaking wet. God showing that his calling was true. Some games and activities we can play this week. The first one is hide and seek. Gideon was hiding from midnight, so play hide and seek with your child or children around your house or in a local park or anywhere that's safe. Second one here is a wet or dry experiment. So Gideon put the fleece down, and when it was wet outside, the fleece stayed dry, and when it was dry outside, the fleece became wet. It's not what we would expect. And so for your child to understand this process, I recommend you get some paper towels, like the kitchen rolls, rip off some sheets of it, and go with your child into different environments and see. Ask your child, do you think it's going to get wet if I put in this puddle or stay dry? And child will say, hopefully it will wet, and you can put it in and see it during wet. You can find somewhere dry, like maybe some concrete or on the table, and say, will it get wet or dry if I put it on this table? And so on, or in the bath, or to soak up a spill. Find some different environments, and before you do it there, guess and allow your child to place the paper on a different surface. Then finally, flower play. So Gideon was there with the wheat inside the hole, and maybe your child doesn't realize the process for wheat and for flour. So you can get some flour, explain that we get wheat from flour, but then use the flour for different learning activities. So an example is on the tray, you could draw a shape on one side and ask your child to copy that shape in the flour next to it. Then you could do some letters as well, or some numbers. So you, with your finger, trace that number or letter into the flower. Then on next to it, your child will do the same thing, copy it. Then to finish, if you have a son like me who loves to play with diggers, get some little toy diggers, and then they can play around, moving the flower around and putting it into a back of a truck and so on. I recommend again you put it in the tray and somewhere that's, it doesn't matter if it gets too messy or that's easy to clean, because with flour we all know it can get messy quite quickly. That brings us on to this week's worksheets. First one I've got is to spot the difference. There's a few difficult ones in there, but hopefully you'll be able to work through it together as you do it with your child. Here we have Gideon was hiding, and Gideon was also a farmer, so to reinforce this point, I have a picture of a farm here, and hidden around this picture are each of the animals below and Gideon. Now Gideon is the hardest one to find, but I have confidence in you. I believe you can do it. The maize, help Gideon get back to his farm with the maize with the wheat, before anybody steals it from him. A simple maize activity. Then reinforcing wet and dry element of the fleece. This is a wet or dry worksheet. So a child must always draw a circle around which children are wet. So in the swimming pool they would be wet, playing football, they would be dry, riding a bike, they would be dry. You're underneath an umbrella, she would be dry, but there he would be wet. So they would draw circles around the correct ones. This week the craft is a toy fleece blanket. So what Gideon did is to test if God was really speaking to him, is put the fleece down. So to reinforce what the fleece is, it's a simple blanket there. You can see we put my son's favourite cuddly toy. I made a blanket for him. His name is Monkey. So we cut out an M for monkey. And let me just show you the blanket, the one which we made. Here it is. So what you need to do is get 2 sheets at least, or you can have more colours if you think it would work better, or if you have them. But of A4 felt. You pick it up in any local shop, definitely craft shops, even in the supermarket. And what you need to do is, first on the big ones, so the A4 one, whichever colour you want, I recommend you do this for your child. Make some little holes around the outside. I just folded it back a little bit and then with the scissors snipped around. Then with a plastic needle and some wool, we just thread it in and out or around a simple blanket stitch until we come right around and tied off the end. Then we drew on the other colour felt the letter of the toy's name, cut it out and just use a new normal glue stick, glued it in place and cut out some other shapes just to accessorize it. And there, his favourite toy now has a blanket he can use. All of the instructions are here, as well as if you head over to the website at truewaykids.com, there's also a video tutorial that will walk you through how to make this blanket. So I put some extra colouring pages in because I know that I get feedback from you that you enjoy the colouring pages. So here's a simple one of Gideon, just standing there, but the main character this week. Here we have Gideon there in the hole with the wheat. Here's a picture of Gideon standing there with his fleece, with water coming out of it because the fleece is wet while the ground is dry. And there we have the mighty warrior, so Gideon in a suit of armour with G for Gideon on his shield to reinforce the letter learning. On the last page is some worship songs which I think fits in with this week's lesson, all linked on the playlist as well of this week's lessons. You can view all them on YouTube. And just a prayer thanking God that he forgives us, that he empowers us and helps us not to be scared. And you'll see below next week's lesson is on Gideon and going to battle with the 300. So I hope you have a really good week. Enjoy it. If you know anybody who would benefit from these lessons, please share it with them. I encourage each week as I hear from you and hear how God's blessing you as you're studying them at home or in church. So have a great week exploring God's words with your under fives. And I'll see you again next week as we continue this lesson of Gideon. Have a really blessed and great week.